Welcome to Talent Matters, a podcast where talent, skills and grit take centre stage. I'm Donal O'Donoghue and this is episode 26. The podcast is sponsored by Sanderson, talent solutions that transform businesses globally. Today I'm delighted to be joined by actress and writer Amy Bhrún. How are you, Amy?
I'm good, yeah.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Oh, not at all. Thanks for having me and the opportunity to talk about myself. I'm delighted.
Brilliant. Well, look, we're going to get into the career, and looking at your CV, you've been in some great stuff from Coronation Street to Line of Duty to the Jason Bourne movie. So amazing stuff. But as we always like to do on the podcast, we want to rewind back to the early days and hear a little bit about what life was like for you, where you grew up and so on.
Yeah. So I grew up, I'm the fourth, 4 of 5 girls. So I'm the fourth child. Just grew up in Rathfarnham. And always wanted to act. I just don't remember a time when I didn't want to do that. So, but wasn't sort of very extrovert with it. It would kind of be something that I had for my own joy and pleasure. So like my mum used to just find me in little corners of the house acting out scenes, particularly from things like Annie. Like, so she was like, yeah, she used to say like, you couldn't even talk properly, but you were kind of doing these scenes from movies and stuff like that. So yeah, and I think probably maybe as well being the fourth of 5 girls, you sort of, you have a little bit of extra, you're not kind of noticed as much. So you're kind of doing your own thing, you know? So, yeah, and I always loved it. I went to school, was always doing drama classes. And then when I was in 6th year, it was kind of a time, I feel very old saying this, but it was a time in Ireland where the CAO forum was just basically like you could do English studies or you could be a teacher. Drama just didn't seem to come into it. There was one course, it seemed, in Ireland at the time. And so I ended up getting into English literature in Trinity. And I hated it so much. I just wanted to be acting. I just didn't want to be, doing an academic course. So then I kind of got a bit sick as well. So my mum had just said to me, if you don't want to do it, just leave. That was always the great thing about mum. She was always just like, whatever you want to do, just do. And you never have to stay at anything you don't want to do. And I think that came from when she was younger. She was always having to stick out jobs or, she would always try and find a new job if she wasn't into it, So, so then I got into a drama school and I spent the year I took a year out and I was just spent the year auditioning and I got into drama school in London and I moved over at 19 and then just was in heaven from then on. Like it was just literally as soon as I landed there, I was like, oh, this is exactly how it's meant to be.
And did you have some breaks as you were going through school and you were into drama? Did you have some opportunities or did you get some breaks to perform when you were in Ireland before you went, or did it kind of take off when you moved to London?
It more took off when I moved to London, like in terms of in any way professionally. Like, so like I'd be doing plays to beat the band. I'd be doing feshes. I'd be doing poems at feshes. Our 4th year musical in school, I was like lapping up any opportunity to do it. But the most even and I think the film industry was obviously very different back then as well over here. So the most you'd be doing would be like auditioning for commercials. But I think as a child as well, I didn't audition well because I remember even if I got a recall for an ad or something, there'd always be the real confident child that would come in and be like, jazz hands. And I'd be like, oh God, this is like, I was so shy. I was so shy. So I think it actually took me going to drama school and I always just said like those couple of years were just for me to almost gain confidence. That's all that it felt like to me. It was like to gain the confidence to trust myself, and not be so afraid. I think I kind of got very, afraid, and shy over here because that kind of happens as you grow up, and particularly, I think it, I think I just got very shy and it got worse as I got kind of older. And I think maybe if kids were a little bit jealous or anything or said something to me, I would then sort of go into myself a bit more. And then it was kind of just about breaking that open as I got older,
So it was the love of the craft more than the desire for attention that kind of
totally. Yeah, and totally. And that's something then in my later life, like as in after I went to drama school and then as kind of as you're auditioning, you're not getting things, your early 20s. that's what I had to really rediscover about myself. I was like, why am I doing this? Oh, it's because I love being creative and I love the craft and I love the work. And as soon as I sort of figured that out and clicked with that, I started making my own stuff. And then as soon as that happened, then I was getting roles, because it was almost like I tuned into that real, the why. I know people, it's an overused kind of thing now, but like the why, once I tuned into that, it changed everything for me.
So tell us a little bit about that. So that's when we talked before, it was a little bit about making the market, using your own kind of creative ability to put together some one-woman shows.
Yeah. So in about the space of 2 years, I think I wrote and performed like 6 different one-woman shows. And then around that time, I wrote a two-hander, and then I had, did a short film and different things like that, and was always writing. But I kind of had this time where I just couldn't stop writing one-woman shows. And it was just a huge outlet for my creativity. And it was also a way to like explore and play with different characters. And I had been over in the UK, and we'd had a theatre company and we're putting on different shows all the time. And then suddenly I kind of discovered, I think I can actually write. I'm going to give it a shot. And then that took me back here, and there was an eatery in Terranure called Mayfield. They had seen my show at Bewley's, and they were like, and it was also around the time that the recession was happening and how businesses were operating was changing. And Kevin, who ran the place there, had said to me, I wanted to be like, what did he say, like 1920s Berlin, or 1930s Berlin, and you in the corner of the room performing, and we'll do dinner and we'll do it this way. And so they just kept commissioning show after show, which meant I could just keep writing show after show and putting it on. And it was an amazing training ground, because there's nothing like meeting or working with a big celebrity or big actor is nothing compared to standing in a room, in the corner of a room, like playing loads of different characters and, doing an hour show while people are like eating their dinner and, drinking their wine, like there is literally... It
actually sounds crazy, doesn't it?
It's mental. But it works, like, because it was just so, the format just worked and then eventually then I would take it to and then I might start a show in a theatre and then I'd bring it to Mayfield. But it was always kind of coming back to that particular spot that just kind of served me so well for a few years. Yeah, it was amazing. Wow. Amazing time.
And then map out for us a little bit, because you've done obviously TV, you've done film, you've done theatre. So map out a little bit after that time of what opportunities kind of came up for you. When did you feel like you had your first kind of significant opportunities where you saw actually this could be viable?
Yeah, like I think, it was definitely starting out as kind of day player roles, and it was, the show had kind of brought me back to Ireland, and my show. And then I'd also done this movie, which was, this medieval movie, low budget, but I thought I thought this was the next big thing. So that was also a very good training round. And then it was kind of got an agent over here as well, because I'd had one in the UK. And then it was kind of day player roles, just, little bit parts in big productions, but small roles. And then I suppose around the time, I just kept building them up. And I just kept going, okay, well, that's another thing on my CV, another thing on my CV. And then I think probably around the time of maybe kind of Jason Bourne happening was definitely just kind of pushed a little bit forward, because that's obviously something people can kind of hang their hat on, or it's huge, good, yeah. And it wasn't a huge role, but it was still, I was in it and you could see me, and I was in it for, we were filming for a few weeks. And so it was significant enough to kind of, And then that also proves to people, oh, you can work in big productions and you can work in, this kind of, pressure and all that. So that kind of changed things. Maybe a little Coronation Street as well. But I think definitely everything just went badoing. Like when Line of Duty came along, that was a huge change. That was a huge shift. And particularly then when they brought me back for a second series. And as well, that's the second series that I was in. So I was in 5 and 6. And 6, really all eyes were on it because it was in lockdown, so people were kind of like obsessively watching it.
They really were, weren't they? It almost it went from kind of a cult following to real mainstream. Everyone was talking about it.
And I hadn't, like, when I auditioned for it, I wasn't even that aware of it actually, but my sister was a big fan of it. So it was that kind of thing of like, someone might be a big fan of it, another person not so aware. And then as soon as I did the first read through, I was like, I better watch all the series, and then I was hooked, like myself. So that was I think that changed everything. And then also my attitude changed. So then I had to kind of start saying no to certain things that I would have done before, and then kind of trying to go for more maybe lead roles, or, you know, more, you know, series regular roles, things like that. So it's all this sort of journey that I know a woman who always says, like, new level, new devil. It's like you go up a level, and then it's really hard, because you have to actually confront a lot of things about yourself, or about, you know, like, I love working. So I had to get to a point where I was going, I'd have to say no to something and trust I was making room for something else to come in. So,
which is difficult, because I was only talking to Shane, who's behind the camera, about this earlier on. Like, it's a precarious world for actors, isn't it? Even no matter how good the part you've just had, once that finishes as well, what's next? And there's that.
Oh, totally.
How do you deal with that and manage that?
Oh, it's really hard. And it's like, and it is that thing of, like, when you meet people and they're like, and what are you up to? And you're like, well, this thing is out, or I just did this, that, you know, you're kind of like going, I'm kind of in the uncertainty bit now. Like, there's so many, it's very hard to manage. And I think it's like, and I was saying this to a friend recently, I always say, I'm always in prep. So I go, if I'm not actively on set every day, I'm making sure that, you know, I'm doing my yoga, or I'm looking after my mental health, or I'm, you know, I'm planning things, you know, for what's to come. Even really simple things, like, I'll always be kind of going, right, I'm going to, you know, if I've been on set for a long time, or I've been on a big job, then when I come back, I sort of like, I get everything sort of sorted in the house. I get the kids sorted, because I go, I'm prepping now for the next one, so that when I move out of the picture, someone can step in and I can be like, well, this is here and this is here. So it's kind of constantly being in the mind frame of, like, well, I'm a creative person, I'm an actor all the time. I think sometimes we think that it has to be that when we're on set, or when we're at a photo shoot, or when we're at a, you know, premiere or whatever. It's not. I think it's just all the time, and realizing as well that it's about the work. And also, in order to, I suppose, be a good actor, you do have to fill your cup, and you have to be able to, you have to be able to kind of look after your mental health, and and be a whole person as well. And it's okay to be a whole person. It's okay to, like, when another person in the creative industry says to you, like, what are you up to? You can be like, oh yeah, well, I was just bringing the kids to school today, and it's okay to be normal, like, be a human being as well. Like,
go back for a second there so you mentioned two different, very different sets, I would imagine, to be on, from the Jason Bourne movie to Line of Duty. Yeah. Compare and contrast the two worlds.
Oh God. It's, well, actually, like, funnily enough, even though Jason Bourne was a big machine, the director he had come from a real documentary background. So actually everything felt very intimate, you know, and he was constantly trying to create an atmosphere and, you know, building up a room. But I think what was lovely as well then about the Line of Duty set is, like, everyone is really sound and lovely, and it does come from the top down. So you always have Jed, who's the creator of the show. He's on set a lot. He's constantly tweaking things, and there's no egos in that space either, which is really lovely. And I think actually both jobs, it didn't really feel like there was any egos floating around, which is probably why there were such lovely jobs to do, but both very different. Like the sort of, like, going into, you know, like, Line of Duty's filmed in Belfast. There's a very homely feel to it. But, like, with Jason Bourne, the stuff that I was doing, we were going into the Warner Brothers studio, and it was all big machine stuff, and you know, and you can see how you would run away with yourself. I always say, like, there was a barista there, and someone making green juices, and, like, whatever you want at any moment. And I was like, wow, it's like, oh, I could definitely lose myself here. Yeah.
And what about your creative process for, like you mentioned with Line of Duty, when you got it, going back and watching the earlier episodes and kind of getting into it? Typically, when you approach a new part or a new role, what's your creative process?
So, yeah, say for kind of, it's different for every single one. So, like, Line of Duty, you're going in there, you're part of a big machine. So I know the tone because I see the episodes, but then I kind of, I try and create her to, and she's, like, say with Steph, she's definitely there to serve other characters. So also knowing your place in the story is really important. I'm not coming in there and it's not Steph's story. So I have to kind of find my way into that. Whereas, like, a couple of things I filmed recently, say like Sanctuary or just thinking like borderline. There's some big jobs where they're a big event and you're in every single episode and your character has this huge arc. The script is so important, so I'll sit down with the script immediately, and then everything is like plotting exactly where she is at any moment, and kind of plotting and plotting the character. And then even one job, and I might make a playlist for some jobs, you know, for some characters, so that I just have an atmosphere. It's just about creating an atmosphere somewhere that I can step into at any time. And then funnily enough, on Sanctuary, the character that I played was, you know, a grieving mother who then turns against her best friend because she's kind of blaming her best friend for the death of her son. And she just goes on this insane arc. Like it's insane. So for her, because it was the arc was so brutal and it was going to be so emotional and everything. I actually wrote a letter to the character, which I haven't done before, but I kind of wanted to honor, and it was someone who'd lost a child. And I thought, well, what I want to do is I want to make this bigger than myself. I want to make it not about Amy and how great Amy is at doing her sad acting. I thought I'd like to honor people who've lost a child. That's kind of what felt like a bigger meaning for me. So I kind of came in from that level. And I think that's really helpful at taking yourself out of the equation a little bit, because sometimes it can be so about kind of, you know, what do I look like? What do I sound like? What, you know, am I doing my good acting? You know, if I cry here, that'll be really impressive to people. You want to take all that out of the equation. And then I do all that background work, and I love prepping. And then but once I'm there, it's completely in the moment. So I don't rehearse anything that is going to be set in stone. Like I'm not like, I'm absolutely going to say the line this way. It's never like that. It's always just see what the other people is giving you, like see what the director wants. And then it's just, so that's kind of the magic of it, because you can do all this prep. But yeah, definitely my preparation is always take myself out of it, and then, you know, and find a greater meaning for the thing, and then do loads of prep, and then just step in and see what kind of magic brings.
Cool. And when you talk about that character arc, is that difficult to manage if things aren't filmed sequentially, or do things tend to?
Yeah, no, they're not. They don't tend to, which is really hard, because sometimes they'll land you in a nice sweet spot and go, oh, we've started with these here, and you go, oh, that's nice. Actually, I can ease into it. Often they don't, and it's completely out. Or, you know, you might be filming the big dramatic kind of bit first, or so it's always out of sequence. So that's why I think for me, I go through the script loads and leave little notes for myself in the script to sort of remind me where she is and what her journey is and where she is at this point. And then a huge amount of trust, because you have to really trust that, like, look, I haven't played these bits yet, so I'm going to really trust that. But even if you come in at episode 5 and you're playing something quite heightened, you know that that's where you're going to. So you just make sure not to sort of, you know, paint it that way again, you know,
cool.
But yeah.
And as you said, you've moved more towards like lead role in Borderline. The one that I watched recently that we really enjoyed at home was Blackshore.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, that was a lovely job. We just went and took over Killaloe and took over the little town there, and it was a gorgeous job. And that was a lovely job, because I kind of came in knowing that she would have this sort of character reveal towards the end, that she would have been, don't want to spoil anything, but that she's, you know, that she has a dark past herself, because she sort of comes in as the wife of the guard that's assisting with Fia, the detective. So you kind of go, oh, okay. And, you know, because so often in the past it's been you're the wife of somebody, and that can be kind of unfulfilling sometimes. But I kind of knew that she had this, you know, she had this big storyline at the end. So it was a lovely job. And then getting to kind of go up and down, because how my schedule worked out, I was up and down to Clare. So I kind of got to have a lovely kind of, it felt like I was on summer camp. It was amazing. And the cast as well were brilliant. That was what I kind of get marveling about that job. It was like cast that I knew, but I hadn't seen all these people been put together before. And that's also quite lovely in an Irish production, because I think sometimes, you know, in Ireland, because we are small, we have a tendency to use same people again and again, and the same thing works, and these people are brilliant. But sometimes it's lovely to kind of shake it up a bit and see different faces put together, and that was what was really, really lovely about it. But that was a really lovely job.
When you think about the biggest challenge or the biggest challenge you faced in your career, what was it and how did you overcome it?
The biggest challenge in my career. It's probably, I feel like the biggest challenge would have been more early on, I think. That, like, there's a couple of things actually. Yeah, actually, like, I think maybe early on, getting rejected from all the drama schools ever. And I think that was really hard. But and I think probably youth played a great, like, the kind of the naivety of youth. Like, I just kept going. I kept going, okay. My mum always says that about me. She goes, God, you can keep knocking you back and you keep kind of just boinging back up.
And where does that come from? You think that resilience and that grit? Because we always talk about that on this podcast. Like, there's talent, which lots of people have, predisposition towards being good at stuff. And then you acquire the skills and you develop them. But the important bit is that determination and that grit and that ability to keep moving forward when, everything is going against you. Where did that come from in you, do you think?
I actually think the grit, probably particularly with the job I'm in, I think it comes from the actual love of it and loving it. Like, I love it so much. Like, I can't tell you. It's the most, I just get such a kick out of it. I love it so much. I love my job, and I feel so bad for people who don't. So I think I love it so much, and I love the craft of it, and I love living in my imagination so much, and I love all that kind of world, that I think probably that's what kind of kept me going, because I kind of go, I'm not doing it because I want to be famous, and I'm not doing it because I want people to think I'm brilliant. I actually am doing it because I love it. So I think that probably maybe that's where the grit comes from, because it's very easy to get back up if you go, that didn't work, but I really love it, so I'm going to give it another shot. It's very much harder to get back up if you're taking it personally, if it's about you, if it's about, if all your value is on your job. My value as Amy is not as an actor, but I love what I do. So if I get knocked back, it's not like, oh, Amy's a terrible person. No, it's just that, like, okay, but I just really want to do it. And there's a space for me somewhere to do it, I'm sure, even if I have to, dig out my own. There's,
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, isn't it? And I suppose that brings me to ask you, what would your advice be for aspiring actors?
Yes. I think figure out why you're doing it, like why you're actually doing it. Like, be really brutally honest with yourself. Figure out why you're doing it. Like, are you doing it because you want to be famous? Because maybe then there's a different route, or is it because you love doing it? And then from there, just make a space for yourself wherever, and it's that awful thing of, like, make your own work. And I love that because that's what I did. But then I think sometimes people aren't able to make their own work. Maybe they're not good enough writers. Maybe they're not. So I think maybe find people that you can make work with. If you can't make it yourself, if you can't just sit in a room and make something, find a little tribe of people that you can maybe make things with. It doesn't have to be that you have to now go and write your own play or write your own film or whatever, but maybe find someone who's a really good writer and find them to do it and write you something and figure out a way to, but, like, I'd say more, as opposed to, like, make your own work, I'd say, like, carve a space for yourself in order to make something happen, and also remember, like, you don't have to be famous. It's okay. Yeah. You can still work consistently and make a living and not be famous. It's okay.
And let's talk about carving out a space. So if you could land or describe your dream role from here, and it might be in a different area that you've already played a part in, what would you love if there was an opportunity that was going to come up in the next few months for you? What type of role would you love to play? Oh. Maybe that you haven't played yet.
Yes, I think I would love. No, I would love to do. Like, I would love to lead a show, and I would love to either lead a show or a movie that actually incorporates, that actually is kind of, like comedy, but also that has maybe a lot of, darkness in it, maybe like a dark comedy. Mm-hmm. That kind of I guess anything like Fleabag or anything that kind of energy towards. But you see, I do love comedy, and I have done the kind of wild I've done a bit of, the kind of mad fun comedy recently, but I would like to do a bit of dark comedy, because I think that's where I think that's possibly a little kind of untapped thing that I haven't kind of tuned into yet, because I was doing so much drama for so long, and then I did get the opportunity to do a bit of comedy, and it is the kind of very big, out and out comedy, which is so much fun to do. But I think I would love to just kind of blend the two and just find something very, something really dark and some dark comedy, and to lead a show in that world and see how that would feel for me, because I think because I know I would feel uncomfortable, because in the world of comedy, there are people who are comedians, and then there are, there are people who are actors. And then sometimes when the two meet, it's like me, that's where sometimes I always feel a bit, that's where I'm out of my comfort zone, because I love comedy. I know it's a strong suit, but I kind of go, if I'm in a room with kind of people who are comedy heavy hitters, I'm like, oh God.
Do you like improv?
I love improv. Yeah. So I went back to start doing improv a few years ago. And that was funny. That was another thing where I went, I just want to find a little space for myself to have fun and to kind of to grow that kind of love of comedy, improv, and everything that I have, because I obviously love SNL and obsessive about all those kind of things. So yeah, so I went back to do that, and that was not as a kind of a Oamian actor. That was me as just like, I want to have fun, and I want to fail. I want to fail constantly, and how fun that is to, and how much better you get as a performer. So it was always going to serve my acting life, but actually it was only for pleasure. And and I had such fun doing it, like so much fun doing it. I don't have enough time at the moment to do as much as I'd like, but yeah.
Sure, that's a good complaint.
Yeah, exactly.
The other question I had for you, just when you compare working behind a camera to being on stage in a theatre, and that audience feedback, when stuff is landing, and how does that work for you? Do you miss that if you're just behind a camera, or are they just two very different worlds?
They feel they sort of, it's a weird contradiction, because it's kind of like they feel like two very different worlds, but also very similar worlds. It's like as if in the theatre, the sort of the it's like turning up the lights full, really, really bright, and it's using the same dimmer switch to just kind of turn it down, because your audience is right in your face when it's on film. So funnily enough, I don't miss it, because I always feel really tuned into the other actor, or really tuned in even to the crew, because sometimes like the silence of a crew and having those moments are so intense, and so and you can feel that exchange of energy, that I don't actually miss the stage. I don't miss the stage too much, but there is nothing like being on stage and something happening live in the moment. And having just this room of people seeing it at this time. There's nothing like that, because you can always then look back at footage, it's so there is such a magic to being in the room. But it's weird that I find it odd that I don't miss it, because I came from, I was doing so many shows, and that was so part of my life. But I feel like it's the same light switch. It's just whether you're using, you're turning it up or you're turning it down.
And away from acting, what do you like to do to unwind and to enjoy yourself?
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's relaxing. I'm like, spend time with my children. My children are quite small, so it's not relaxing, but
hard work.
It's hard work, but no, it's very fulfilling. But I love them. Like, it's very fulfilling. But definitely, I'm mad into yoga. I love yoga. That's huge. And I don't do it because it's like, oh, that's my exercise. I actually do it because it gets so fulfilling. I meditate as well. And now when I say meditate, like, I'm not sitting floating. I'd be lying in a bed if I could, putting in the guided meditations or whatever. And yeah, I'm walking my dog, spending time with my dog, because like Buddy just lives in the moment, so he's great. So yeah, and just all the normal things, spending time with friends, watching movies, watching TV, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so But you're like, once you have kids, well, once I had kids, like that, all that time is kind of, when I'm not doing it, I'm tuned into the kids.
There's
and
plenty to be doing, isn't
yeah,
there?
yeah, definitely. But yeah, just refilling the cup, as they say.
Very good. Where will people see you next? Is it Borderline?
Yeah, so Borderline is coming out. I'm trying to think. Sanctuary, I don't know when Sanctuary's just been out in the US, and it's Sanctuary a Witch's Tale, it's called, and I don't know when it's coming out actually in Ireland. But hopefully soon. But and Borderline, I'm that's coming out in the UK on MGM Plus, I think in September, and then it'll be the US and Germany in November, and then I don't know when it'll land in Ireland. I'm very international.
Yeah, it'll probably get picked up on some streaming service.
Yeah,
you would
exactly.
imagine.
Yeah, so I think they're working all that out at the moment. And then I'm doing a show at the moment called Show Kids. That'll be on RTE. I don't know when that's coming out. And yeah, oh, and I've a very small part in that in Small Things Like These. It's the Cillian Murphy film about the Magdalen laundries. So yeah, lots of I always pop up somewhere, but yeah. So I've no Sundays at 9 p.m. on RTE or BBC for you, but yeah, they'll all those things will be coming out.
Great. Well, look, what we will do is we will add your socials to our show notes, so people that want to find out more about your work can follow you there. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if you have enjoyed the episode, you can subscribe to our YouTube, follow our Instagram. It's @talentmatters_podcast. Thanks again to our sponsor, Sanderson. Huge thanks to Amy for coming in, and we'll see you next time.